they nesting takes further. They are a warbler that nests on the ground in the pine trees, under the pine trees. And the pine trees have to be a certain size. And they nest there in the summer, and in the winter they go to Bahamas Islands. And then we have a bird. I'm scouting around. I don't know if they'll remember anything else. And do you know we have a bird that travels 24,000 miles a year? And he hasn't got a compass with him either. That's the Arctic tern. He flies over the ocean. And every year he goes to the south, and from the Arctic he goes back to the north. And that is one of the mysteries of the naturalists. They have never found out how that bird can find its way over the ocean. And it's all ocean. Now our birds, of course, that migrate, they only go over the bay down in the southern part of our country. They only have a short distance. And that is quite something to think that they can even navigate across there. Even our little hummingbirds. And the hummingbirds, they sometimes sit on the back of the other birds on their right to the side. Then there are some birds that build their nests on the ground. And they heap up the ground over the nest, and with decaying vegetable matter. Decaying vegetable matter makes heat, and that keeps those eggs warm. And when it's cold, if the air gets a little colder, they go and put a little more ground on. And if it gets too warm, they scrape the ground away. And that is the way that bird. And that's one of our tanagers. Then there are some birds that. Then there's a bird that has quite. She builds a nest, and when she lays her eggs, the male bird covers up the nest and she covers it up so she can't get out. The only opening there is in the nest is her beak, that he can feed her. And then when the eggs are hatched, during the time that she's sitting on the eggs, she molting. That's when they change their feathers, their dress. When she has molted, then she comes out with her young in a new dress, a bright new dress. They're characteristics that one can hardly realize what nature has so many secrets that we don't know anything about, and we don't know why. And I think that is so interesting to read and to study some of these things, because it makes you think a lot of things that you never would think about otherwise. Now, I have some pictures here. This is sort of a guessing game. Now they're not so very good because I didn't take time to make them very good, but I think there's enough there that you can tell just about what. Oh, there's another bird here that's very interesting. Do you know what a loon is? That's one of our water birds that's becoming extinct. But a loon is a bird that travels faster in the water than a fish. It just seems as if it has no bones in the body, whatever. And it is a wonderful bird to watch. What I was going to show you here. I used to talk a little bit to the Boy Scouts about birds. And now this isn't a very good drawing, but can you guess what this is? What is there out here that you're watching? The squirrels? Oh. Which bird is this, do you think? Which bird? I can't hear you. Sparrow? I didn't hear you. A sparrow? Yes, it's a sparrow. But the tail is too short for this in my drawing. The tail should be shorter. But you'll find that the sparrow has a more chunky body than a finch. And the tail is a little longer than this, so you can always tell a sparrow. And the beak, the sparrow also has a beak. Now you know what this one is. What bird is this? A mourning dove. That's right. And a mourning dove, that is one bird that I have been fighting for years to save because people have been killing them. And finally, the governor passed a law that it's unlawful to kill them. It is one of the birds, the most loving birds that we have. Have you ever watched a pair of mourning doves love one another? It's really interesting. And they only mate once in a lifetime. Now you know what this one is? That's a swallow. But it's a tree swallow. The swallow and the tree swallow is not quite as long as the barn swallow. The barn swallow really has a scissor tail. You're pretty good guessers. Now this one I don't think you know. You wouldn't know him unless that you have studied birds, I think. That's a phoebe. Do you know what a phoebe is? He's a bird. Well, this is just the way he looks, but he's gray. He has a little top notch. I didn't get that on the film, but he is a bird that catches our moths and our flies on the wing. Now, some birds feed on the wing as they're flying. So, how do the swallows eat? They eat also the way that, and the nightingale does too. They fly and open their mouths. Now this fellow here, you know.
Mockingbird.
That's a grackle. And now the difference between so many people ask me, what's the difference between a starling and a grackle? Well, the difference between a starling and a grackle is they're very much different. They are, a grackle has a long tail, a very long beak, but so has the starling. But the starling's beak is yellow. The other beak is black. And he walks very proud. If you'll watch the grackle, he walks like he owns the whole yard. And the starlings, they are sneakers. A starling is nothing more or less but a scavenger bird. Now here's a bird that you love to hear, but you don't see him. You don't see him very, very often anymore. The what? I didn't hear you. He's a meadowlark. And the meadowlarks, no, you don't hear them very often anymore. This one you know. That's a robin. And this one here, it's a very poor picture, but it's oh. That's what it is. And woodpecker is good. How about beak? You see, Do you know what this one is? Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, now this one here, I don't think that you know too well.
The kingfisher.
If you go fishing, you probably have seen him. We haven't very many of them anymore. And of course, this is belongs to the swallow family.
Oh, purple martin.
The purple martin. That's right. I thought that I would. Now here are some of the birds that we have in our area. How many of them do you recognize?
Yellow, good, blackbird? Yeah, I've seen them too. They're all going to drink with them. When they make hay, they come out in the field. The yellow with them. Blackbird. These are the ones that
This is the grosbeak that I would have in my yard now this year if I had my big feeders out. And this bird here's a bird that you wouldn't ever see unless that you were going into the thick woods and be very quiet. They are a very mounted bird, and they don't come out of the heavy forest. And the end of the bunting. And then, and here is another one that we don't see very often. That's the vixen. But there's a bluebird. Have you got bluebird houses? Now the bluebird has become extinct, almost extinct. And then there was some people in the south started to get anxious about it, and now the bluebird is getting back again into our area. And if you have any bluebird houses, be sure you watch them and put them up so the cats don't get into them, because they don't like to be. If a bluebird house is not very far from the ground, a fence post is about the height of it. Now there's a nuthatch and there are 3 different kind of nuthatches. I have the 2 different kinds here in my yard. And there's your kingfisher, and there's your some that belongs to warbler family. Then I'll show you. I have saved these because I had a group of Boy Scouts that were interested in birds. Now here are our winter birds. These are the winter birds that are well, no, there's a couple here that we haven't got, but we have most of them. The different flickers, and there's the finches. See, there's the purple finch up there, and there's the downy, yes, and the big downy, and the snowbird, and there's the other nuthatch. Now here are there are many different kinds of of woodpeckers. Can you find which ones that you see around your trees? The red-headed foot, you do. And then there's the high-leaded woodpecker, which has almost become extinct because people are so very trigger happy. They have to shoot everything they see, and that they think it's a very funny-looking bird, and so they kill them. He's a very large bird. You saw one in your woods, didn't you? As a high-leaded.
We have two in America. They're living on Withee back.
The what?
Two of the affiliated woodpeckers live in Withee back Barclay.
They are.
Yeah.
Well, now I have some. Now if you want to ask some questions, I have some bird pictures here of the birds that are really good. Now here's your red-headed woodpecker, and here's your downy.
The red-headed woodpecker, when they're pecking, what keeps them from hurting their neck?
What keeps them like?
Keeps them from hurting their neck and head.
Oh well, they're made to do that. They haven't. Have you ever?
Could you pass the pictures of the birds around so they could look at them a little closer?
Oh yes, surely. We'll do that. This is a northern shrike. He's a good bird, but he likes to feed on smaller birds in the winter. Now this is the oriole that we have in this area here. Now this is a picture of a jungle, but it's not a very good picture of a jungle. I wish that the jungles would come and you could see them. Now this one is let's see here. We have many different kinds of warblers. There are about 100 different varieties in the one species of warblers. But we only have one that I know comes and stops out in the migrating, and that is the Baltimore warbler. See, I have more of them here, haven't I? Now here's a good picture of a very interesting bird is the what was I did? What's that bird? The purple martin. The purple martin is a very clean bird. When he has a house full of little babies, he takes care of them every morning. All of their droppings, he takes their droppings out of the house and drops them down on the ground, and you'll find that the martin houses are always clean. He's a very clean bird, and they keep their young from now here's the bird that I was telling you about that is very seldom seen. You see them just as seldom as you do a scarlet tanager. Now here's, and you don't like a fur, do you? No. And now this is a starling. Now another cook that called me and asked me what this bird looks like, but a young starling looks like it's got speckled wings or speckled feathers, and that's just because he hasn't gotten all of his feathers yet.
Do you have a little martin house out back by your woods?
I have.
Do you have martins out there?
Not anymore. The trees have become too tall. A martin has to have a long space for his for coming in and going out. Now here's a bird that I've only seen them once or twice in my yard, and that's a crossbeak. And they are a bird that lives in the pine trees.
They eat seeds, don't they? The crossbeak eats seeds? Does the crossbill eat seeds?
Is he a seed eater?
The crossbill?
The crossbeak, yes. They eat the seed out of the spruce trees. Here's one of our Orioles. And here's our warbler. And this is a warbler. There are many different kinds of warblers, and they are very wonderful. Early in the spring, one of the earliest birds that come to us is a fox sparrow. Do you hear the bobwhite? Do any of you hear the bobwhites anytime? I guess they're gone, aren't they? Do you hear them around here? We used to hear the bobwhites every evening at sundown, but it's many years ago since that.
These aren't around here anymore. They're in the western.
Yes, this is a crossbill.
Did you see your bobwhites around here?
We used to have bobwhites. When I was a little girl, I used to sit and listen for hours to the bobwhites that came out at sundown. But now you don't hear them. Now we don't even hear them up at the lake. Now here, he doesn't look very inviting, does he? I think you have seen these now. Here's a vireo. That hasn't been around, has it? And here's a scarlet tanager. The scarlet tanager is just as shy as the indigo bunting. And here's the bobolink. Have you ever? This one's a bobolink, pink, white, pink. And our dear robin. And they do. But do you know how they do that? It's the air pressure that they feel. It's the pressure of the air that causes them to do what they do. But I can tell you something about the birds if we can't see them. And I have some pictures maybe, and we can go in the other room and then we can sit down and we can. And then of course if you are by the window, that of course keeps
Especially a
them
great
away.
big bunch.
Today is one of the poorest days that I have known.
What did you know?
Well, it's because they have been working with the snow, hauling it away, and they had a big tractor and makes a lot of noise.
What do you feed your birds? Like the one feeder that's out on the swing? What long feeder? What do you have in it?
Well, what's in it? There is seeds. You can buy wild bird seeds, and then thistle seeds, and safflower seeds, and sunflower seeds.
What's the bird that's sitting over there in the pine tree? You see that little mulch tree? It's kind of a bigger bird. It's sitting over there in the one tree. It's kind of a bigger bird.
Yeah, one tree.
Right on the bottom by the bird feeder.
Oh, well, I don't see it, but it's
Hopping there.
Oh, that is something called a berry thrush.
Can you see it? You can?
And when the sun shines on him, he's just very beautiful. His back has a blue purple cast, and he has a perfect black collar around his chest. And he's there early in the morning, and he's there almost every hour of the day. I think it's a bird that is really not supposed to be here in the winter. There are very few that come during the winter, but this winter there is one here. And they are a ground-feeding bird. Well, how many of you know some of the birds that you see? You do. But now these feeders, you see that sinker that's hanging there at the end of that little dowel from that bird feeder right out here?
Looks like a piece of metal.
That is, I have put that to the weight of the chickadees and the nuthatches. Do you know what the nuthatches are? Well, now they should be around all the time too. It's just strange that they are not. But and they know that. They know that that's their feeder. And over there, and that feeder there, by the box, that's the grouse's headquarters for feeding. And you'll see a little thing sticking out from behind that bird feeder there. That's a weight that you can put on and determine what bird you want to have feeding there. And now that's the cardinal's feeding station. I put the weight for the cardinal. And the blue jay closes it. And if a larger bird steps on these things, then they close and then they can't eat the seed. And my big feeders I didn't put out this year because I had the starlings were coming, and last year I had sparrows, and this year they were beginning to come, so I didn't put it out. And I'm kind of sorry that I didn't, because I miss the grosbeak and I miss a lot of the birds that used to come. Because this yard was just filled with birds all the time. But it takes a feeder like that. But I had so many blue jays and they wouldn't let the other birds get into it. Thank you. Well, now that's a crow. I'm positive that's a crow.
Does he come down and eat also?
No. They sometimes fly over and sit on the tips of the trees. They're not here. But I'm quite sure that's a crow. I don't see well enough to. Maybe your young eyes can see better than a crow. You all know what a crow is.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's a crow.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, that's one that she called it.
And the bird bag has always got warm again for the birds. Sometimes when it's real cold, I think they go into the bird bag and warm their feet. The thrush does. And they take their bath too in the winter. Now I have heard so many people think, and they also say that the birds shouldn't get wet in the winter. And that's true, that it depends upon how they get wet. Because these birds bathe there during the winter and bathe there and nothing happens. They're just as happy. It all depends upon how they get wet.
How much do you have that set at then, like for a week? You know, you have it set at 30.
I think it's just about like what a 50-cent piece per weight.
Okay. And that's for chickadees and nuthatches, right?
That's right.
And you have the
Nuthatches.
Okay. And that's the heaviest for 50 birds. We'll have to start look at that. Well, would that schedule away when we go over to look at how that works?
If you want to.
We'll look at that one later when we go over that scare the birds away.
Well, yes, it will. But of course, that doesn't make any difference. They come back.
Oh.
But it's very simple, and one of these boys could easily make one.
Because I can see why.
It's just a multiplier that holds the lid up. Now, I don't know if you want to go in the other room and sit down, and then I can tell you something about the birds. And while more heat in their bodies than you ever have and ever will have. And that's why they can keep warm. And another reason why they can keep, our little birds can keep warm in the winter, their bones, all of their bones are hollow. And that's why a bird can fly. And that's why our ducks and our geese and our water birds, their large bones are all filled with air. And when a bird breathes, it's breathing through its whole body. And when you take a bird, if you take a bird up in your hand, be sure you don't put your hand around it, because the heart of a bird is just below the chest, just like as your heart, except it's much higher up. And the heart beats 2 to 4 times faster than your heart does. And their eyes are also different. The sun is bothering you. Why don't you move a little bit? And their eyes are also different. Now a bird sees on both sides of their head. And they have a sight that is about 100 times more larger than the vista of them is about 100 times more than your eye. And they have the ability to set their eye at scrutinizing very close objects and very far away objects. And the owl has the very same thing, and they all have. And that is why some of these birds can see and some not. The only one that has a little difficulty is our red-headed woodpecker. He has eyes, he only sees from the side of his head. So that's why there are so many that are hit by cars, because they don't see the car. You've all got red-headed woodpeckers, haven't you, off the highway? And I feel sorry every time that I see it, because they are becoming extinct. And now, another thing, we have a lot of birds that are extinct. And we will talk about that. But if we people don't become more interested in birds and their environment, we won't have any of the very common birds. They are becoming extinct. There were bird watchers in our state this year. They go out between the Christmas and New Year, in through the woods and down the streams and down the rivers, and they say that it is just terrific this year how the birds are lost. And they don't know why, but they think it is because of the cowbird, the blue jay, and the starling, and also the house sparrow. And that means that we should try to eliminate some of these birds. I don't know how we can do it. We can do it by not feeding them in the winter. And of course, by getting bird traps and catching the birds. But you have to know your birds if you have a bird trap, because the other birds get in there too. And the other birds are just as apt to get in there, and even more so, because they have become accustomed to being fed, a lot of them. And so if you put something in a bird trap, then you should be very, 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 you should know your birds. And there's 2 birds that look so much alike that I have a hard time and sometimes in discovering which bird it is, and that's the finches. The purple finch. The female, the female bird is generally always a little different from the male bird. Some are more brilliant and some are less brilliant. But now, have you had any study of birds at school at all? You haven't. We should start that right from the beginning. Birds are well, you say now this is a sparrow, this is a chickadee, this is a nuthatch. Now all birds are classed as species. Each bird belongs to a species, and in that species are the different varieties. Now, for instance, there are over 90, if we total them all in the whole United States, there are about from 60 to 90 different kind of sparrows. Now, the house sparrow is not really a sparrow. It is a bird that came, a man brought them over from England in the 1800s. And he thought that would be he just thought that was a nice bird, I guess. And in England, it's called the weaver bird. So, but in this country, we have called it the English sparrow because it looks so much like the sparrow. How many of you are interested in birds? You all are. Good. And I think if you could get books from the library with birds and studying the birds, you'd find it so interesting that you'd want to just keep on studying them. And each bird is different. And each species is different. I'll show you that in a bit. The birds have characteristics. You know, you are all different too. You all have the different characteristics. And so have the birds. Some birds are shy. Some birds never want to come out of the woods. They like the dark and the quietness of the woods. Some birds like noise and like the sparrow, the house sparrow. And nosy. Some birds are real nosy, others are not. Just something like the human beings. They all have their traits. And it's fun to study them and find out these traits as they become more interesting too. The chickadee is a little nosy fellow, and he's very energetic, and he just keeps on. Now, one year I had a chickadee that wanted to stay all summer, and he wanted to live in the wren house, and he had one certain wren house he wanted to live in. And so when the wren came back, they fought for about a week or so, and finally the chickadee went out. He just kept on until he got his way. And I think that's why the chickadee gets along so nicely. Now the nuthatch, he's also, he likes his territory too, but he's much more shy, and he doesn't come out as quick, and he's defeated a whole lot sooner than the other. And the finches are a very modest bird. It likes quietness, and it likes to be in groups. Some birds like to be in groups, like the chickadees, and also most of the warblers. The warblers, that is a migrating bird. You know what a migrating bird is? And do you know where their migrating road is? How many of you know that? The warblers and the birds that come down from Canada for the winter and migrate, and ours migrate, they follow the Mississippi River. That is their path. And the robins also take that. So you can remember that if you visit the Mississippi, you will probably see some of the birds along the river. And of course, that is, we won't forget that. A bird's body is entirely, each bird has a different body, and that of course why they are specified into species. Now I think I'm just going to show you a little bit about what I mean. I had some charts, but I have thrown them away because I have them too. Now here is a bird. You can all see this, I think, can't you? Now this bird, this is the beak. And this is the throat. Here sits the breast, and the heart is right here in them. And this is what they call the nap. Now, the wings are called the primaries, and the tail, they are, of course, the tail feathers. And underneath the tail, there are some smaller feathers, and that's the covert. And then the feet and the legs are called the tars. Now I'm going to show you that. Now you watch or did you see the beak of this bird here? Now that beak is for all seed-eating birds. And if you learn your birds, you will know exactly what they are when you find out their body and their tail and their wings. You can tell very, very quickly what kind of a bird. You can even, if you get to know them real well, you could, when they fly, you know which bird it is because each one has a different flight. You'll find the little one that's very distinct, and that's the little yellow finch. Now the birds that you saw out there by the feeder are the yellow finch. They get a new dress every winter. They lose their yellow and get their gray feathers and their black strip on the wing for winter. And now in another month they start to get just a little bit lighter on the breast. They get a sort of a little green yellow, and in another month a little more and a little more on their wings, and finally in June they are full-fledged in their yellow dress. Did you know that? And it's very interesting. But now that is a seed-eating bird, and they have a very fine beak, and their body is quite short. And when they fly, if you notice it, they fly in a 1, 2, 3 measure. And you just watch them, and you will find out just what kind of birds they are when they fly. And then birds have different feet. Now here, as long as we're on the beak here. Now this isn't very good because I haven't got the beak of the bird seed, fine seed. Now that's a beak of a grosbeak, and they eat large seeds and large fat seeds. Now they are a bird from the cedars and from the spruce trees, and they pick the flat seed from the cones and eat. But when we feed them sunflower seeds, they take the seed and they squeeze it. And when they squeeze it, the shells fly or fall beside their beak. Now these are water birds that pick up water bugs from the water, but we don't have very many of those. And this is a woodpecker beak that has a little. Have you never noticed the woodpeckers when they sit on the tree? Their tail is made so that it holds them up on the tree trunk, and their bill catches the worm that they're after in the bark. Now birds have different toes. Now we even have woodpeckers that have 3 toes, and some have the 2 toes. But now this is a bird that are birds that not nest but that sit on the trees. Their toes go around the branch and hold them up. This is a bird that walks in the water. Here is a bird that is from a sandy when they work in sandy soil. And there are some birds that have even 4 joints in their legs. So if you notice their feet, you also know what kind of a bird that you are looking for. And of course, the tail is very important. Now here are the different tails. Now can you tell me which tail that one is? You all know the bird, I know. You must. That's the barn swallow. All swallows have that sharp, cut up tail. And this is a warbler's tail. And these, the nuthatch's tail are like this. Also the phoebes. And these are. And this is a pintail, a grouse pintail, so the little birds can also have a tail of that type. And this is the ordinary tail that you generally see on the finches and all the sparrows. But it all depends upon the length of the tail. Now a sparrow's tail is longer than a finch's tail. I don't know if you... I don't imagine they'll remember much. but if you like birds and you study the birds, you'll find it very interesting because they're all different and they all have a different call for each other, and they even have a different call when they're angry at each other too. Just like the squirrels, they go by the switch of their tail. And then birds have many different characteristics. Now they all nest differently. They are all building different nests, and they all have different kind of eggs. What color is a robin's egg? Good. What color is the starting egg?
Light blue.
No, it's white. Round and white. And birds all have a different way of building their nest. Have you noticed that? And I must tell you, children, that if you see a nest of a bird and there are eggs in it, don't touch it. And don't go and look into it. The mother bird is there, and you probably don't know where she is, but she's watching you. And she has a sight that is much better than yours. And another thing, if you make a few trips to a nest like that, you make a path where a cat will come and take care of it. They will destroy it. And they'll destroy eggs as well as they do the small birds. A cat is one of the things that is causing our birds to become extinct. People have become so interested in cats that everyone has to have cats. And a cat is, the naturalists tell us that the average cat takes 50 birds a season. And they expect that there are about 50 million birds that are killed every year in the United States by cats. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? And of course, if you have to have a cat, keep them in at night. The birds cannot see at night. The only one that can see at night is the owl. So remember that if you have a pet, and you can teach them not to take birds too. Feed them properly. But the only pleasure a cat has is to destroy a bird. I was going to tell you about some of the nests and how the birds take care of their eggs. There are some birds, but we all know how the oriole's nest is hung. You've all read about that. There's so much written about it. And now there are some birds that don't even nest. Do you know what a penguin is? Well, She doesn't make a nest, but she carries her egg. She lays one egg a year, and she carries that egg between her legs. She has a little pocket between her legs. You see, they can't fly; they wobble. And any time that the egg gets a little cold, then she just sits down and warms it up. And sometimes the naturalists have noticed that sometimes the male penguin wants to help take care of these eggs, and if the mother penguin won't let him, then he goes and picks up a stone and carries a stone in his pouch. The birds have a little characteristic all by their own. Then there are some birds that there's a bird that makes her nest. Now we haven't got them here, but there's a bird that makes a nest something like the oriole nest, and she gathers up all the fireflies. You know what a firefly is? And she puts them in her nest, and she leaves them in her nest. Now the naturalists do not know why this bird does this, whether it's to lighten up the nest so they can see where they are. And are the dogs coming out? Squirrels. Oh, the squirrels took your girl. And then there are some birds, not like the cowbird, that does not make a nest. And you know what the cowbird does, don't you? You all know that. And when you see a cowbird, you can just make up your mind that she has already laid her egg in a small bird's nest. And the small bird that suffers most of all is our song sparrow. If you have noticed, there are very few song sparrows anymore, and they're the bird that livens up the whole world with their song, the most beautiful song. And the small bird, the song sparrow, builds its nest very close to the ground, and that is why the cowbird can so easily hide her eggs in it. And if you've noticed that cowbirds are becoming more numerous all the time, and our other birds are just disappearing. Then there's a bird that I don't know that, I don't remember if I know that, I have the name out here. And we haven't got him in this country though. But he's a bird that has his own barber. Every year he has a long beak, and he clips his feathers and keeps himself in trim that way. Now there's and there are some birds that build a nest on the ground, and that is one of our warblers, the Kirkland warbler, which is going to become extinct.